So we're recording. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So muscles need to have ATP to contract. Remember, the ATP energizes the myosin heads so that they can be cocked and then energized to pivot toward the center of the sarcomere. So fatty acids with oxygen can enter the mitochondria and produce ATP. Uh, Creatine phosphate is another source of uh, production of an energy source. Uh, Glucose can be stored as glycogen, but in a resting muscle, the muscle is just building ATP and uh, also building up the supply of creatine phosphate. When we go to an active muscle, moderate activity, here glucose is broken down into pyruvic acid. ATP is produced, and when pyruvic acid enters the mitochondria, then you can produce a lot more ATP. So all of this ATP comes from glucose being produced by breaking down of glycogen from the liver. And you can have also fatty acids contributing. CO2 is released, and you have this large buildup of ATP. Then we have peak activity. Here you have to have uh, very, very uh, production of glucose from breaking down glycogen, and very, very, very quick contractions lead to uh, contraction without oxygen, and lactic acid is formed, and you can get muscle tiredness and muscle burn by the production of lactic acid, which has to be then eliminated from the muscles. So when a muscle loses the ability to contract due to low pH, lactic acid buildup, low ATP levels, the muscle has to relax. It has to have more and more oxygen so that more ATP can be produced to be ready for prolonged activity. So we're back to, if oxygen is available, you can have large quantities of ATP produced, which are used to uh, energize the myosin head, which once it's energized, it attaches to the actin filament and it pivots from cocked, when it's cocked or set to pivot toward the center of the sarcomere. Okay, so muscles at rest are going to metabolize fatty acids, store glycogen. Uh, in light activity, muscles can need oxygen to, aerobic means the availability of oxygen, to break down carbohydrates, lipids, and amino acids. And at peak levels of activity, after you've run out of ATP, most of your muscle activity will not have oxygen available. That's anaerobic, and lactic acid will be generated, which means that you lower the pH and you get an oxygen debt, and that oxygen has to be moved to the muscle by blood vessels, and the muscle has to recover and use oxygen to generate more and more ATP. So you have a limited time when muscles can contract before they have to relax and deal with lactic acid. Okay, let's not worry about fast fibers. We're not going to worry about this. So let's go ahead and go back to here and let's stop recording.